Another day, another Cracker Barrel parking lot. Seems to be the theme here on the East Coast, where I'm sleeping most of the time. Road down. Sweet. Oh, what a lovely little spot here.
Into this room, you hardly knew anyone. Sea full of strangers crashing on the rungs. When the band strikes by the end of the night, strangers no more. I wanna dance with everybody who came through that door. Whether you came here to party or you came here to cry, whether to meet somebody, cheat somebody, get low or get high. So come on, all you people with 2 feet on this floor, I wanna dance with everybody who came through that door.
After essentially spending 2 days in a Starbucks, which you do a lot like living on the road like I do, I had time to review the image that I took in the last episode. Also, by the way, I did end up getting bit by quite a few flies. I don't think I got bit by anything, but I probably won't know until later. And I am still itching from those. But anyways, after getting to review those images, I really liked one of them. I shot quite a few different compositions, kind of testing out some giant wide angle panos, and shots like that. But the one that I ended up liking the most was probably the simplest of them, which is just a single shot and the image was framed by the tree. And the reason I like that one the most was because unlike a lot of big scenes where you normally take an image like that I'm trying to take, there's usually giant mountains or maybe some rivers in the background or something, and they're so big that they take up a decent amount of the frame. But here, when I was trying those shots, you just lose sight of all of these hills, or mountains in this case. And I just didn't like the way they looked because they kind of made it where the tree was the subject rather than the scene. And the reason that I liked yesterday's episode is because this shot really makes it where the hills and the mountains of the atmosphere are part of the shot. They're equal parts just as the tree is framing the shot. So I came back to see if we can get some different conditions. It's pretty hazy, but I actually think that that might work for a shot like this. It depends on how much of that haze actually gets caught by color. It's also supposed to rain tomorrow, so if I am still in the area and want to come back south, which is what I had to do this time, we could try to get this shot again with some more clear skies or with some clouds and less haze. But I came up here, I was tired of sitting in Starbucks, and I really just wanted to get another shot in the bag, and I really, really like this composition. So we're gonna try to shoot it again, maybe see if we can get some slightly better conditions and see if we can get a nice sunburst just like we did last time. So that's what we're gonna shoot. I'm gonna keep, I gotta wait. It's probably another maybe 15 minutes until the sun that you can't see hits the mountains there, and that's gonna give us that perfect sunburst at f/16, which if you really wanna know how to do it, I did a whole video on it explaining it here a couple years ago in Colorado. I basically just have to dance around, slightly moving the tripod just ever so slightly as the sun sets, getting the light just the perfect size to create a nice sunburst where it's not overblown, but not too small as well. Stay tuned for that. Take some shots, get some B-roll. I'm gonna play around with some other shots down here with the other camera while I wait.
Come all you saints and sinners, poets, prophets and fools, all you cowboys, tricksters, hipsters trying so hard to be cool, all you dreamers and schemers thirsty for more. I wanna dance with everybody who came through that door. Oh, let it all go. Oh, shake up your soul, throw your hands in the air, throw your hat in the rain, throw your hips and your heart into everything.
All right, so there's definitely more clouds and haze in the sky, which is great for the potential of atmosphere for your shot. However, there was so much, you're not going to see it here, that it blocks the sun just a bit too much to get a nice crispy sunburst. So what happens is when the light gets diffused, the sun isn't strong enough to create a small source of light because it's diffusing on all of the clouds that are in front of it. And that really hurts the ability to create a crisp sunburst, like I said. Meaning the shot just isn't gonna work as well as it did in the last episode. Even if the clouds looked better, even if the atmosphere looked better, having a blurry / non-crispy sunburst, for me, really ruins this particular shot. So, I don't think this shot's gonna be any better. I'll still probably dabble and edit one and do a quick edit and show it to you so you have an idea of what it looks like, the difference of today versus the last time we shot it, so you can see what that diffused light does to your sunburst and how important it is to have just enough light so that it's a small source of light, because that's what's important, is that when it's a giant source of light and then the light is being diffused by the clouds, that sunburst just doesn't work. So here's the shot. I don't know what the rest of this episode is going to be. Maybe I'll talk about compositions, or maybe I'll talk about, I don't know. Stay tuned.
Get lost in the crowd, get down on the floor. Let's dance with everybody who came through that door.
We're back again at our favorite little trash can spot here on the Blue Ridge Highway. This is the third time we're going to try to shoot this. Yesterday, we tried to shoot when it was really hazy. Today, as you can tell, maybe by all of this, it rained, which is what was predicted. And now it is super clear over here and not much haze. And we've got quite a few, well, we had quite a few clouds. There's a lot of clouds over there that you probably saw when I was driving in some of those clips, and I was hoping that there would be clouds here. And of course, there's not. There's a few, so maybe we'll catch some color there. My only concern is, and it's gonna be blown out, is that the sun is right about here, and it might get blocked by clouds right when I need it to be not blocked by clouds. We'll have to wait around and see if we get a better shot than that first night. And this is landscape photography. Come back to a spot over and over again, hoping to get better conditions. Stay tuned.
What's all the worrying for? Can't take it no more. Pin me down to the floor.
All right, clearly I'm not having any luck with this shot because I drove up here, tons of clouds in the sky, as you saw in the clips, atmosphere, everything was looking great. I was like, all right, it's a clear day, we're gonna get the shot because it rained. There's gonna be clouds in this shot, and then not a single cloud in the shot. I think there's less clouds in this shot than the first day I shot it. So this is probably it for this particular composition. This is my fourth day here, third time trying to shoot this comp. And I think what we're gonna do now is actually talk more at length about why I chose the composition that I keep repeating after the first day of shooting. I'm gonna go through some of the shots that I took that first day, show you a different style of image, show you why I chose this particular image for this particular spot. And then I think that if we ended up getting some atmosphere and some clouds, that it's probably a portfolio-worthy image. It actually might be a portfolio-worthy image without them. I do like the edit that I did and talked about previously, but let's jump into Lightroom. Let's jump into talking about those different images and talking composition and why I chose the one that I did, because I think that'll better explain it. For now, I am gonna pack up and get out of here after I watch the full sunset. So I hope you're enjoying. Here's me from the future. Hey, pardon the interruption. I just want to say thank you for all the support. And if you wanted to help support me in more ways than just liking and subscribing to this channel, you can do that with a little link down below where you can find things like my Patreon. Patreon is a really great way to help support me living on the road full-time and making content like this. You can get credit at the end of every video for helping support me. You get access to raw edits that I do from time to time. You can even get a postcard from me once a month. So check that out down below. You can also check out my Lightroom editing companion. Maybe you're a photographer and you want a more linear workflow directly built into Lightroom. You can also find that in the link. You can find things like my workshops, you can find things like prints, or anything in between. All of it helps, and if you can't do any of that, just sharing this video with someone in your family or a loved one that might be interested in travel or anything of that nature. Let's get back to the video. Hey, it's me from the future. Let's dive into Lightroom really quick and talk about why I chose the image from the first day rather than the second or third day, but more importantly, why I chose the composition that I did in this video. Okay, so here is the image from that second day where it was overcast and just too hazy in the sky. You can tell the sun does not look very good, and that's because it's too large of a light source. It does not create any crispy sunburst patterns. So that image pretty much just didn't get edited. This is just a quick edit of an HDR blended together with some Lightroom adjustments, and that's it. Let's take a look at this third day, which is basically exactly like the first day, except the conditions just weren't as good. So basically this edit is almost exactly the same composition. It's an HDR blend with just a few Lightroom adjustments. And the reason I didn't end up editing this image is because I didn't like the way it looked compared to the first day in terms of the atmosphere and the gradients in the clouds. But pretty much it's almost identical to the first day. Let's take a look at that image final version. Now, this one is the one that I ended up choosing to fully edit. This is not an HDR blend, it's a luminosity mask. I painted a lot of the light in here, although it does look very similar to the HDR from the third day, as you can tell, but there's just slight differences. You can tell it doesn't look as bright, the shadows are a little darker, and I just put a lot more control and emphasis on this image, and there's just a touch more clouds in the sky, which is why I ended up choosing this one to show you in the final edit, rather than doing a full edit on the second or third day. Now, let's talk about composition, because I think that's ultimately the most important thing for this image, and it's why I chose this particular composition over and over again. So that very first day, I was taking a few pano shots that turned like these really big shots at 14 millimeters that have this whole tree in them. Let me show you what that looks like. So this is the pano combined. This is a 4-shot pano, vertical, and HDR, so this is technically 12 images, 3 bracketed shots per image for the 4-shot pano. This was the edit and image that I took away before I went back the second and third time, and ultimately this was the image that I looked at and decided I don't want to keep taking this image. Now it turns out later on, that we're going to talk about very shortly, that I probably should have kept taking this image because I ended up liking a completely different image put together with different software. We'll talk about that in a second, but let's look at this particular image. So this is combined in Lightroom. It is stretched all the way as far as I can get it, and it still just looks a bit too, I don't know, too fisheye with that top branch in the top of the sky. Now what I could do is take this into Photoshop and do a more full edit, stretch some things out, but overall what I ended up doing was I combined this image in Lightroom into an HDR pano, and I just didn't like the results. So what I ended up doing is the second and third day is I never ended up shooting this image again. So this is the composition versus the composition that we ended up choosing to repeat over and over again, which was this one. Now, obviously this image is a final edit versus a quick edit of this pano. So later on, between right now in my world and what you just watched in this video, I actually went back and recombined this pano using 𝐵𝐸. So the reason I didn't do it the first time is because I didn't pay for the HDR version of 𝐵𝐸, which is double the price. But I decided, you know, I do this for a living, so I might as well buy it and see what results I can get. This was the pano that I got from 𝐵𝐸. Now, this pano right here that you see on your screen is the exact same set of images as this pano. I'll admit the one in Lightroom that's on your screen now is edited a little bit with some Lightroom adjustments. So if I went in here and showed you, this has a bunch of stuff going on. But this one is just the flat image straight out of 𝐵𝐸. Now, you're wondering why I left it with all this white space. That's because when I combined it, I knew that I would take it into Photoshop and stretch some of those parts out and crop some of those parts out as well. Here's that image with the edits added to it where I stretch it out in Photoshop, and I actually really like this composition. And had I found this image or done that combination using 𝐵𝐸 before I went the second and third time, I probably would have repeated trying to get this image. Now, at the end of the day, I still end up liking the other composition just a little bit better, and I think it's important we talk about that. So let's look at this image and get an idea of what the message is trying to tell you in this image. To me, this image is more about the tree. It's more about looking at this big giant scene of this tree that has some mountains in the background. But if we compare it to the other composition, this one is more about the scene itself, using the tree to create a natural frame around the edges of the image, and it just creates a really nice window or natural window of framing. So let's take a look at exactly why that is. And it's because this entire area here is almost completely framed by this tree. And obviously you got these little touches of light that keep on the inside of the frame, which is really important. So you'll notice that all of the light is on the inside of the frame, whereas all the dark parts are on the outside of the frame, which also is creating a natural window. And if we compare that to the other composition, what's happening is there's still darker parts around the corners, which I did darken up and could darken up more in the edit, but you're not really brought into the center of the image as much. To me, to sum up these two images, I look at this image and think, this is a photographer's image. This is the type of image I would take and show to other photographers to impress them, maybe, or to have them ask questions about how I took it, how I got everything in the shot, how everything's in focus. Whereas the other image feels more like an image that maybe someone you would sell the print to put on their wall. It's less invasive to taking up all of your attention to see it, but it's got so much more little details in it, in my opinion, that you can find. And what I mean by that is we can actually see the mountain. We can actually see the light on the mountain. We can see all the little details going on in here on this tree here. And I don't know, I just like this particular composition better, but I don't necessarily know which one is best. But that's why I like the composition more. I would love to know which composition you like more. And speaking of, I actually asked in my Discord chat what everyone thought of these two compositions compared to each other. So I'm gonna read a few of those really quick. Let me open it up. And basically I posted these two compositions and asked which one people like better. And I got varying answers. One of my favorite answers was said by Chris. I think it's Chris. He said, I like the smaller composition, the less big one. It's more intimate and less obvious than the other composition. The framing works so well, it tells a story along the lines of that framed area. And that really is basically what I discovered when I was shooting the shot, was that the bigger composition doesn't tell the viewer really where to look. You kind of can look everywhere and lead your eye and find things. Whereas the smaller composition of just the framed tree, you really are told, like, hey, I want you to see these mountains on the Blue Ridge Parkway. And I want you to see, after that, this natural framing of this lit tree and all of these little details that you can find in it. Whereas the other one is more busy, it's a bigger, and you don't get to see those mountains, which is really what I was trying to show off in the composition using the tree. Another comment I got was from Kevin. He said both are nice, and he said that the smaller composition tells a more concise story, and there's less distractions. The sun under the limb keeps the eye inside the frame and makes the hills more prominent, whereas the bigger composition puts the sun on top of it and more emphasis on the branches. Anyways, if you joined in the discussion, thank you. I really enjoyed doing that because I think this was two difficult compositions to talk about because they're different, but they're of the same thing. And I think at the end of the day, there's probably no wrong answer. It just really comes down to which one you like more or which one I like more. So for me, that was the smaller composition, and that's why I repeated it. But I will admit, if I had combined that image in PT-GUI before going in the second and third day, I probably would have kept taking that image, even though I probably still would have ended up liking the smaller, more intimate composition better. I would love to know what you think down below, and as always, you can like the video if you liked it. Consider subscribing if you loved it. I'd really love to know what you think about talking about compositional stuff like this, because I think it's really important, and it's things that I want to do more on this channel. It's very difficult to discuss those kind of topics because a lot of times there's no right and wrong answer. There's just what my opinion is. Anyways, that's all for this one. I'll see you on the next one. Later.